Hi guys. So this is gonna be a little bit longer video than what I usually do. I'm gonna try and cover everything in as clear a way as I can with how I ramble and whatnot. But I've been hearing a lot about Venezuela, seeing what happened with Maduro, capturing him, bringing him to New York, stand trial. And there's a lot to unpack. My reason for making this video is because I've noticed a lot of people, particularly on the left, talking about, oh, this is just more US imperialism and we're going in for the oil like we always do. And it's not about the oil, guys. Granted, the oil is a nice side benefit, but it's not about the oil. Anyhow, I'll get to that in a few minutes. As far as how we went about it, when the United States did this, this was a situation where the circumstances on the ground, the situation going on around Venezuela with regard to drug trafficking, things like that, it kind of dovetailed nicely with what the administration, what the United States wanted to do anyways. So, we clearly didn't go in there and capture him because he was trafficking drugs, but it worked out nicely for us because it gave us some, a nice justification. As far as the people that are on the left and otherwise that are saying that, oh, he wasn't trafficking drugs, Venezuela was not a narco state, that's absolute BS. We have seen this in the past with dictatorial regimes. We see it often in Africa. We saw it in particular in Syria. When the Syrian regime fell, tons of evidence came to the fore, huge stockpiles of narcotics that the Syrian state was using to finance its war against the various rebel groups. And the reason they did this was because of the crushing sanctions that were against them that had crippled their economy, and on top of other things. And you'll note sanctions is something that Syria and Venezuela have in common. Venezuela, they didn't have an ongoing civil war to cripple their economy. They had socialism to cripple their economy. Add to that the sanctions, and all of a sudden you need a way to generate some revenue. And so that's where the drug trade came in. So the reason that they're using to justify bringing in Maduro, very similar to the Noriega situation way back in the day, but more or less, legit, if you consider what happened to Noriega legit as well. But yeah, Venezuela is a narco state. There's no two ways about it. So next, the oil. We are not doing this for the oil. I'm going to explain what we are doing it for a little bit later, but I also want to make sure that I'm clear that just because I say that we didn't do it for the oil doesn't mean that we're not going to benefit from the oil. And when I say we, I mean the United States. Number one thing that it does almost immediately is it hurts Russia's ability to circumvent sanctions. And that's important to some people. It's not really that important to me, but that's something that has been on the US hit list for a while. This is one way that they're able to do it. Second thing, getting US companies involved in Venezuela, getting them down involved in that oil trade, bringing it back because it's been horribly mismanaged by the Maduro regime. That's going to benefit the US oil companies directly. There's going to be a lot of personnel. They're going to be making some trips down to Venezuela pretty soon. And so we've got that going for us. I don't know if you're going to see, Venezuelan oil products in your car anytime soon. You'll recall a few years back when Biden, cracked into the US oil reserves. Most of that shit just went to Europe. We didn't really see any benefit from it. That may be the case with what they extract from Venezuela as well. Who knows? But we didn't do it for the oil. The U.S. has plenty of oil, always has had plenty of oil. As I said, it's a nice side benefit. That's not why they're doing it. When we talk about, okay, well, bald ass motherfucker, why are they actually doing it? I'm going to get into that right now. So you'll recall a while back, we made a mineral deal with Ukraine. The United States made a mineral deal with Ukraine to get access to primarily their rare earth deposits that are in eastern Ukraine. Prior to that, there was a lot of talk by Trump in particular about Greenland and purchasing Greenland from Denmark. I'll explain that a little more here in a second too. Well, we look to Ukraine and we see what's going on the ground. It's not going well for Ukraine. The area where most of those minerals are that we wanted access to are in the Donbass, in eastern Ukraine, and it's beginning to look like any potential ceasefire, any potential peace agreement is going to involve Russia keeping the Donbass and keeping most of eastern Ukraine. Barring us going to war, barring Europe going to war and kicking Russia out, it's pretty clear now that Ukraine's not going to be kicking them out. So that U.S. mineral deal with Ukraine, pretty much up in smoke. There's not going to be any U.S. contractors digging Ukrainian minerals out of the earth anytime soon. So we had a deal. It's not going to pan out. Whatever access we thought we were going to have to those minerals, probably not happening. Which minerals am I talking about? I'm talking about rare earth metals, all the stuff that is needed to make the electronics that you're watching this on, that I'm recording this on, the same electronics that are built and put into drones, built and put into missile guidance systems, aircraft avionics systems, everything that has a screen or a button or anything of that nature needs these minerals. Right now, most of those minerals, especially the processed minerals, worldwide are coming from China. China is not a friend of the U.S. The U.S. administration knows that, and they're in a situation where in any standoff with China, China can simply turn off their access to a huge proportion of the rare earth minerals that the U.S. needs to run their war machine. This is a big problem. This is why you had the U.S. signing mineral deals for Ukraine. This is why you had Trump out there talking about, buying Greenland, because what does Greenland have? Neodymium, dysprosium, scandium, yttrium, cerium, all sorts of massive reserves of rare earth metals. What did eastern Ukraine have? Neodymium, scandium, cerium, lanthanum, lithium. We're not going to get in those minerals. We need them. So obviously Denmark's not going to sell Greenland to the United States. Obviously, we're not going to be able to kick Russia out of eastern Ukraine. In order to not remain dependent upon China, we have to find a source for these minerals that are crucial to our modern way of life and to our modern military. That brings us to Venezuela. Venezuela is a tremendously mineral-rich country. They don't just have oil. They have gold. They have precious metals. They have everything you need, including rare earth minerals. They border to the north The second largest rare earth mineral exporter in the world, Brazil. The Brazilian border sits basically in the Brazilian and Venezuelan border, sits in an area known as the Guiana Shield. The Guiana Shield is tremendously mineral rich. The stuff that they mine in that area is called coltan or something like that, whatever. But it's basically called blue gold. It is a huge source of tantalum and niobium, two of the most important minerals that are needed to produce electronics. A lot of these minerals are used in making advanced alloys and things of that nature as well. The interesting thing about these deposits is that when you have one rare earth deposit, you tend to have amounts of almost all of the other rare earth minerals in there with them as well. So, while the Venezuelan deposits are primarily tantalum and niobium, which is nothing to shake a fist at or anything like that. Tantalum is probably one of the most important minerals, next to lithium. But you're going to have amounts of all the other ones as well, which makes Venezuela highly attractive as a source for these. Right now, China is I think they produce like 80% of the world's processed tantalum. That's fucking huge, guys. But like I said, it took me a long time to get there. Now I'm there, but it's not about the oil. It's not about freedom. It's not about drugs. It's rare earth minerals. You look back, you look at what this administration has said, what this administration and previous administrations have done, and it's very clear what is on their mind. Rare earth minerals. The Ukraine mineral deal, purchasing Greenland, which dude's talking about again, which ain't gonna happen. And now Venezuela. Look at what they all have. Rare earth minerals. Look at what our military needs. Look at how wars are fought nowadays. You need these minerals. These minerals are as crucial to modern war machines, to the modern US military, as oil was in World War II. If you don't have access to them, if you're in a situation where another country, an antagonistic country, can shut them off in the event of any sort of confrontation, you are in a very bad situation. That's why this needed to happen. That's why they did it. And I wouldn't be surprised if, going forward, we see, more moves in this realm as well. They are definitely moving to secure the critical resources for the next, war, whatever that's going to be. So, yeah, that's it. Repeating myself at this point. Not oil, not freedom, not drugs. Rare earth minerals, guys. Rare earth minerals. Thanks for sticking around this long. If you did, get yourself a dog, guys. I gotta say it. My girl, my relatives, they don't want to sit around and fucking listen to me talk about fucking rare earth minerals or geopolitics or any of that shit. Your dog will sit there and listen to you all day long. So get yourself one. Bye, guys.